Hello everyone, welcome to See Through Panel. This is a comic book graphic novel review and discussion podcast, and today I am going to be talking to Bex Ollerton. She's a former animator turned comic artist. She writes and illustrates introspective comics about mental health, neurodiversity, and the general struggles of being human in an overwhelming world. And you can find her comics on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook under the handle Schnum. How are you doing, Bex?
Hiya, I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you first off, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to talk to me. So the reason why I've decided to kind of talk to comic book artists and creators and stuff like that is I just want to get an idea of behind their process. So I just wanted to first start off talking about some of the comics that you've created. So I want to the one that immediately kind of caught my eye was the anthology about autism. I was just wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit how that came about and the process behind the Kickstarter and kind of organizing all the different creators to kind of come together and put that anthology together.
Mm-hmm. Oh geez. Okay, well, firstly, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Secondly, to actually answer your question, oh boy, it sure was an ambitious undertaking for sure. It started out as just kind of it was never even going to be like a book. It was just like, hey, it's Autism Acceptance Month in April. So what if I gathered a bunch of autistic comic creators and we did a thing together? So I made the vaguest of tweets about it, and then literally dozens and dozens of people responded, yes, sign me up. And I was like, oh boy, lots of people want to do this. So I shoved everyone in a Discord server, and it was kind of like, okay, let's just make comics and post them online. So we really scrambled to do that because it was already I think it was the 10th of March when I made that tweet. So we didn't have a lot of time, so we just made comics super in a rush. And then as we were kind of posting them, it was sort of like, what if we maybe put them in a book? That would be cool. So that's what we did. There were so many people involved. There were 40 people. So it's been really...
Wow. That's too many.
Kind of. It is too many. I think I didn't want to turn anyone down. I had what my original goal was to get 30 people. So there'd be one person for every day, or maybe 31. But I didn't want to say no to anyone because then I was kind of like, well, that would be mean. And I feel like it would go against the spirit of the project. So I just kind of let everyone in. And then it was like, okay, some days we'll just post 2 comics instead of 1. That's fine. More comics is good. But it did sort of become difficult to manage. Also at the same time, I think because everyone I was working with, like me, is also autistic, it was actually surprisingly easy to communicate with everyone and just be flexible with deadlines and yeah, it was a really positive experience, even though it was kind of stressful, but it was that good stress where you're doing something cool. And then with the Kickstarter, oh my god, I was really nervous about it. I was kind of like, oh my god, the reaction to this so far, the reception has been really positive, but I don't know, does anyone even want a book? Is this thing that people want, or do I just want to make this But then almost immediately it became very clear that people did want it, and we hit all our stretch goals in the first day, and it was, wow, this is really cool, but also, now we need to think of more stretch goals on the fly. Oh no. So it was an experience for sure. Yeah, it was really good. It's been it's very stressful in some aspects, but I wouldn't change it. I've had a blast.
Yeah, and have you kind of delivered the Kickstarter, all the Kickstarter stretch goals? I know some people run into problems with that. Yeah. So
I ran into really big shipping delays. So when I made the campaign, oh god, this is my story that other people should learn from. When I made my campaign, I was kind of thinking okay, if we do really well, we'll probably manage to shift about 300 books, maybe. So that's what I planned for. I was kind of okay, and I'd be able to ship all these books by this time, and it'll take this amount of energy and this amount of money, and that was the plan. And then we ended up, people ordered over 2,000 books, and it was kind of oh my god, suddenly I found myself in this situation where it was oh no, I can't do this on my own in just 1 week. uh-oh.
Yeah,
So it ended up taking me like 2 months to get everything shipped, because not only was it the shipping, it was the actual production as well. It was, oh, I'm not just putting in an order for like 300 books anymore, it's like 2,500. So yeah, that was the whole thing. As it stands right now, almost everyone's rewards are shipped. I've literally got 10 people whose rewards are still left to ship, and that's because they're people that wanted custom artwork with their orders. And I was kind of like, you people were always going to get done last, and literally everyone's been fine with it.
yeah,
It's kind of difficult in a way. Sorry, I'm just rambling, but
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of difficult because it's kind of like when you're late with stuff, you feel like everyone's mad at you, but then literally no one actually is, but it still feels stressful.
I think when you're looking, waiting for custom art, you've got to expect that's going to take slightly longer than
Yeah.
everyone else. And so long as like the lines of communications are kind of clear about, right, we've run into this and this is what we're going to do to sort it. Most people are quite patient and
Hmm.
understanding, especially since you're not like a $1 billion corporation with thousands of people working in logistics who are paid to sort this
For
sort of thing
sure.
out. It's kind of just, yeah. So yeah, I think most people are really understanding
Yeah, everyone's been super
in that.
nice. Yeah. I think, like, yeah, people really do understand that it's just me in my little room surrounded by boxes. So I did my best.
Yeah, so no, I mean, congratulations on that. It's not lots of creators trip over on Kickstarter and kind of get it wrong. And I'm not going to. There's kind of a famous example I'm not going to name where he basically burned all his stock, but let's not get into that
Oh
story because it's a
boy.
bit depressing. Yeah, yeah. So just a little bit more about your work with autism. My nephew's autistic, so it's just those comics, especially the ones that you wrote, kind of struck a chord with me a little bit about his what. Well, everyone's autism is different, so kind of, but it's still nice to read about other people's experiences of what it's like to
Hmm.
live in a kind of overwhelming world. I was just wondering, one of the things that mentioned in your bio was kind of maybe raising awareness of neuro diversity.
Hmm.
So just wondering, are there any other comic books or graphic novels that you think kind of are good representations of neurodiversity or kind of raise awareness around the issues of having autism or Asperger's or things or what things?
Yeah. So, like, one of the reasons I wanted to do sensory was because I kind of didn't know of any others. Like, I can think of one other comic specifically about autism, and that's Camouflage, which is about autism in women. I think it's called Camouflage, the Hidden Lives of Autistic Women, which is a little bit contentious because, like, some people think that, like, like, quote unquote female autism is different, and like it's not, like, autism is autism, but it just can present differently in different kinds of people and go unnoticed in women a lot of the time. But anyway, I'm just getting off track. It is a good book. It helped me out a lot, and I would really recommend it. And that's really the only one. Like, I sometimes think that, like, maybe there's a lot of people that might be autistic or have ADHD and maybe, like, either aren't diagnosed or, like, they don't tell people about it. Because sometimes I'll read, like, autobiography from other artists. I'm not going to say who, like, because that would be invasive. And I'm kind of like, oh, I relate to a lot of this. And, like, a lot of this seems very neurodivergent, if you will. But yeah, it's there's a real lack of that kind of content, or at least I think so, at least in book form. Like, there's a lot of comics and things online. Like, ADHD Alien is fantastic, ADHD Couples, ADHD Brie, like, there's literally loads. But there's not that many for autism. I think there's one other autistic comic artist I can think of doing webcomics, and I think they're called, like, Aspie. Oh my god, I can't remember. Uh-oh. Maybe, like, Aspie World or something? I can't remember. Maybe if there's,
Yeah,
like, a description, we can put a link
yeah.
there. But yeah, it sucks. And I would really like to see more people kind of making content, like, for autistic people that's labeled as such. I don't know.
It's kind of interesting what you mentioned there. The only other book that I've come up with, the only other graphic novel that I've come across that discusses autism in any depth is Invisible Differences by Julie Deches. It's a French graphic novel. It's an autobiographical account of her discovering well, her journey to getting diagnosed with autism and the stigma that's around in France about getting the stigma in France about being autistic, and how she found that really challenging in a lot of her work relationship, her personal relationships, but how ultimately she found it really kind of even though it was a difficult journey to go on, how it kind of helped to make sense about a lot of the behaviors that she used to cope
Yeah.
with living kind of everyday life. And just kind of the other thing I wanted to pick up on there as well, I think the medical profession isn't great at diagnosing problems with women sometimes.
No, it's not.
Just yeah, it's kind of not just with autism. Just I'm just thinking about heart attacks. Like the symptoms that women have when they're having heart attacks are quite different sometimes
Yeah, uh-huh.
to the symptoms that men present with. So it's not just that autism. I think the medical field has got issues with treating women in a way that the 50, if you're making up 50% of the population, probably should be treated a little
Oh,
bit
sure. I
better.
mean, don't even get me started on like periods and sexual health as well. Like it's bad. It sucks. I hope
Yeah,
it gets better.
there's do you know about the Work in Progress London group?
No.
So they're a group. Well, they're online at the moment, but I came across them on
Oh, wait,
meetup.com
do you mean
and
like WIP
WIP.
comics?
Yeah, WIP Comics.
Oh,
Yeah, I
mate.
used like the Work in Progress. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I just got they're doing a really interesting sort of anthology thing right now where it's like they send out little zines as like part of the whole anthology, and then you get access to the whole PDF. And I just got that like 3 days ago. It's really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I love the group. Joe Stone's done a fantastic job
Yeah, absolutely.
keeping things together. But one of the I had the opportunity to review their previous anthology, and there was one comic book in there about Viagra and how Viagra was initially supposed to be, it's kind of initially discovered as a treatment for period pains, but because like men's erections are more important, no research has gone into gone into the, proper research has gone into, is it an effective treatment for period pains? We don't know yet. Hopefully those trials will be forthcoming. But yeah, so a little tangent, a little
Oh man.
tangent
Well,
there.
that's just typical, isn't it?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of the some of the other comics that you've got on your website. So you've got Lavender Clouds and God, I should have written them down on the list. I'm just looking at your website now. I'll cut this out. You've got Lavender Clouds.
It's all good.
You've got Lavender Clouds, Staying Afloat, and uh, kind of the Inktober comics that you did as well. And one of the things that I've noticed, well, one of the imageries, one of the recurring motifs that I noticed in some of your comics is around water and sinking. So I was just wondering, how do I frame this question? Why is that an appealing motif for you to kind of use? What appeals to you about using the water and journeys over the sea and sinking and swimming as kind of metaphors for the stories that you're trying to tell?
Sure. Okay, I can give you two answers. I can give you like the honest answer and then the sort of retconned artistic answer. So the honest answer, the ridiculous answer, is that I'm really into Kingdom Hearts. And like a big thing in that game, like in the sort of intro of every game, there's a character that sort of falls into water, and there's also like, oh my god, it's so stupid, there's like characters and they go on a raft, or like they want to go on a raft because they want to find new worlds and stuff. And I played that game when I was like 11, and it's my special interest. It left like a huge impact on me, and it kind of like affected who I am as a person. So like I think that's the reason that I love like water, and like I love being on the beach and like swimming and like just floating and existing. So that's the honest answer. The retconned artistic answer is just that water has a lot of symbolism that's really great. Water can be like light, and you can feel like liberated when you're in water. You can feel weightless, or you can feel heavy, like you're drowning and like being hit in the face with all these currents and tidal waves that are coming at you. And it's just so versatile and like fun to draw as well. Like I'm not very good at drawing water, but it is still fun to draw. Yeah, and those are the reasons.
So it's curious you mentioned Kingdom Hearts, because the thing that kind of occurred to me with some of the imagery is that it kind of reminded me of Wind Waker,
Oh,
the
interesting.
Zelda game. Yeah, so it's kind of so no, that's really good. The other thing I might as well ask this question now. I was just having a quick look over your Twitter, kind of like what's up with them shoes that you bought?
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
These shoes are literally the best thing I own right now. I have them right next to me. Like I'm seeing them right now. Oh my god, they're so cool. So someone that I follow posted a screenshot of like I'm really into Evangelion, and they had the same website that I bought these shoes off had like an Ava collection, and I was like, mate, I want those shoes. So I checked the website, but they were sold out, and I was like, no. But then I was like, well, maybe they've got some other cool shoes. So I go on the homepage, and these were like the first thing that I saw, and I was like, oh my god, like, could these shoes be any more amazing? So I don't like I'm disabled and I have like really kind of like messed up feet. So shoes is not something I buy for myself like ever. But I was literally like, I am willing to suffer for these shoes, like honestly. It's also because I'm going to start doing conventions again very soon, worryingly soon. I'm kind of like, I could treat myself to some nice shoes to wear to conventions and nowhere else because that would be embarrassing. But then I'm also like, what if I just wore them to like Tesco? What if I just owned it? Like,
Yeah, because as just kind of that as it was my initial thought, is that when are you going to be able to like wear those shoes? But yeah, comic conventions, obviously. So I know you're kind of streams nicely into my next question about Thought Bubble. I understand that you've got plans for attending there. How excited are you about being back amongst comics creators and fans and that sort of thing?
oh my god, you have no idea. I'm literally, I cannot wait. Obviously, I'm still a bit nervous as well because like COVID cases are still not great right now, to say the
Yeah.
least. But I know that Thought Bubble in particular has a really good COVID policy. Like, I don't think you can even go to the event unless you've got a certificate to say that you're vaccinated. And I'm double vaxxed. I'm disabled, so I got double vaxxed in like March, which was really great actually. I have been like super self-isolating throughout this whole thing. I haven't seen pretty much anyone that isn't family or my partner. So I am going to lose my mind when I'm finally able to be around like comic people and fans and just like creators again. In a good way, I hope. I'm sure it'll be quite overwhelming, but like I'm literally so excited. I'm also kind of like I'm in the middle of sort of last minute convention prep right now, and it's kind of like, oh god, I haven't made merch in like the last 2 years. Uh-oh, I don't have anything to sell. But then it's like, well, I do have stuff. I just need to actually get it printed and make the stuff. Ah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the next question I was going to ask is what you're going to be taking to a Thought Bubble and the other conventions that you're going to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I'll have like sensory with me. That's gonna be like the big cool hardback. And I'm also gonna have I've got like sketchbooks and stuff with like sketches that I've done from the last couple of years. That's always fun. I'm gonna have Lavender Clouds, which is like all my autobio stuff, which I'm mostly known for. I'm gonna do like a reasonably small print run of that and have those. I've got Staying Afloat as well, but I need to design a front cover for it and get it printed like today. So that I have that in time. I've got loads of books. I've done like a little. I got all my hourly comics from. I assume you know about Hourly Comic Day. It's on like 1st of
Yeah.
February. Yeah. So the last 3 years of that, I've put those into a little book, and I've got that. And yeah, and then I need to make some prints. I don't know what I'm making yet, but I'm sure I will make something.
Yeah. It's just exciting to get back into
Yeah,
convention
it's so exciting.
convention scenes.
I can't
Yeah.
wait.
So it kind of in your comics, you kind of mention that sometimes social interaction can be overwhelming. You need kind of like time to recharge.
Mhm.
After that, is that something you're thinking about going back into these convention things? Have you kind of planned ahead
Yeah.
for that? Or are you going to just see how it rolls?
Yeah, absolutely. That is like a huge thing for me. Like maybe you wouldn't know it because I'm so charming and charismatic, but like literally after this podcast I'm going to be like, "Whew, okay, time to do nothing and like calm down for a while." Just cuz like, I love talking to people and like it's really exciting for me and I enjoy it, but it does take a lot. I think conventions are they're manageable because like even if it's like a 3-day weekend, like going into it exactly exactly what you're getting into. And I've done conventions before, so it's not like, well, actually, this is going to be my first thought bubble, which is really exciting. But, I've done like MCM, so I know what I'm getting into. One of the ways that I have kind of like prepared for that really is something that I kind of really want to do is like share accommodation with like other comics people and have like a little party. But like for me, I know that would be too much, because it's like I think I'm gonna need the evenings to just sort of like chill out and not see people. So as much as that would be fun, it is kind of like, okay, no, I need to be sensible. Like this is a marathon, not a sprint. So yeah, and just kind of like withdrawing in that way, like when it's over. But
Yeah.
also, I can do a 3-day weekend. It'll be fine. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I think let's see, people, comics people wilding out after 18 months locked away is going to be overwhelming for anyone
Yeah,
anyway. They probably
yeah,
do need to rest in
absolutely.
the evening. So
Well, I think people will
one of
get
the
it. Sorry to cut you off. I think like
yeah,
you can kind of probably go up to people and be like, "Oh, geez, I've not seen anyone in a while. This is quite overwhelming. I need to take a break." And even people who aren't autistic or neurodivergent will get it. They'll be like, "Oh no, same. Like this is quite a lot, isn't it? After 2 years of not this." So that will be
yeah,
nice, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. So I was just gonna kind of change track. One of the themes that one of the things I noticed about reading a lot of your comics is a lot of them focus on hardship, but there's also kind of this underwhelming. That's the wrong word. A lot of your comics focus on hardship, but there's this theme that goes through them about hope and optimism. And I was just wondering, are you quite a hopeful, optimistic person? Because I'm quite pessimistic. I've got a heart of coal, so I'm just interested in how much of people, how much of creators, how much of themselves they put into their comics. So I was just wondering, why why that line of hope and optimism through
Hmm.
through the work.
Oh, geez. Hope is an interesting one for me because, like, I do. It's weird because I feel like you would look at my body of work and I think it kind of gives across the impression that I'm like miserable all the time. But, like,
I would I don't really yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with that. I didn't.
yeah, well, I mean, you just said the opposite, so clearly this is my own insecurity talking. But yeah, I do think of myself as being quite optimistic. I think I'm a realist. Like, I'm hopeful if I think it's reasonable to get my hopes up. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. But if I think I'm in sort of like a situation where it's not good, I don't know, it's hard to explain because honestly my mood changes so much. So like sometimes I really, especially if I'm like super depressed, I'll be like, it's all meaningless and there's no hope. But then like I don't know, I come out of that after a while and I'm like, no, like there's things I can do. Like even if it's like a small win, like a win is still a win, even if like to other people it wouldn't be. Like as long as it's a win for me, like it's good, and that makes me feel hopeful. But at the same time, like I think this is something that I wanted to explore in like a future project that like the groundwork is not done yet for, but like it's something I've been thinking about a lot, which is hope as kind of like, sometimes hope is the thing that keeps you in like a bad situation. So like, you can keep hoping. I mean, like the context of this work that I want to make is an abusive relationship. So like trigger warning for that for anyone listening, but like yeah, so if you're in like an abusive relationship, like hope might be the thing that keeps you in that bad situation. It might be like, oh, I hope this will get better. Like I'm sure it'll get better if I just hang on to hope. But then like it doesn't, and you have to accept that to leave and to make things better for yourself. So hope is good, but sometimes it can be bad. I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, I think it's yeah.
Sorry, that was
It's
unexpectedly
yeah,
heavy.
yeah, yeah. You do have one comic on your website that does talk a little bit about
Yeah, that's
abusive
epithelium.
relationships. Yeah, and it's really I don't think I've got the emotional intelligence to ask the question sensitively, so that's kind of why I was kind of staying away from that one. But
But I
it's
brought it up
how
anyway.
yeah, yeah. How when so I write a little bit myself, and it's always you always feel a little bit vulnerable when you create a piece of work. How do you deal with that kind of vulnerability in terms of talking about such something that's happened to you, might have been a painful experience. How do you prepare yourself to put that work out there, or prepare to put pen to paper, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
How do you prepare yourself for that? Because I know that there's stuff in my life that I wouldn't be able to to write about. So I was just wondering how do you go about doing that?
Sure. Well, I think like God, it really depends on what I'm working on. So there's some things, like this comic that I alluded to
Yeah.
5 seconds ago is something that I've wanted to make for like years, but I haven't quite been able to like take the plunge yet. So I'm not all the way there myself, like there's some things where it's just you kind of have to weigh like because so like for my autobio stuff and for epithelium as well, it was like this was cathartic to make, this was good. And I think the reason that is because while there's a lot of reading between the lines with them, and but the actual like scripting and making them is kind of surprisingly vague. A lot of the time, you're kind of like alluding to a feeling or like an event, some more so than others. But if you're trying to be like, if you're wanting to be like really specific with something, I think that's where it gets kind of difficult because it's like weighing the sort of catharsis of making it versus the fact that you're going to have to relive like a bad experience to make the work. And I think if you're going to do that, you need to be, really confident that it's something that you want to do, like not only for other people to read, but also like for yourself. I really liked, I don't know, actually, no, I'm not going to talk about that because that's spoilers. Never mind. So like with epithelium, I don't actually know how I managed to make that. I made it in like 2 days, just in kind of like I need to make a comic for Glasgow Comic Con. I don't have one. Oops, guess I should make one. And then I just made it. And I'm really proud of it. I think it's one of like my best comics, if just for what it means to me. Like, yeah. But yeah, it's God, I guess it's one of those things where no one can really tell you how to do it. You just kind of have to do it. And I think another thing that makes it easier for me is that, like, I don't know why this is, but I find it easier to sort of make a comic and just put it out onto the internet and be like, here it is for anybody who wants it, rather than to actually sort of talk to someone like in real life about something. And, people can decide for themselves how healthy that is. But yeah. So I think, making something and knowing people will read it has never really been something that bothers me. Because for me, it works for me.
That's something I struggle with that all the time. I just think, oh, this guy. Yeah. Anyway, let's not talk about that.
Were we about to have a moment?
Yeah. No. So let's get into questions about your process. So you've decided to create a comic. What tools do you use? Do you work digitally? Do you work with ink and paper? Kind of how does that work for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you can pretty much tell by looking that I work digitally. So I used to work traditionally before I had the tech, but I cannot work traditionally. Like I would love to. So many of my favorite artists work traditionally, and I see their lines and their beautiful artwork, and I'm like, oh, I want that in my own art, but it's just never going to happen. I love working digitally mostly because it's so versatile. You can like change things around. You never have to commit, which is great because I'm a coward. So it's like, yeah, so you can erase all the time. But also one of the things that I think kind of goes under discussed about working digitally is that, I mean, apart from, the fact that it can be expensive, it's accessible for people with like disabilities. So I have GBS. I've had it since I was like 5 years old, which sucks, but it's fine. And I've got tremors in my hands. So I really struggle to get like smooth line art, but I have a stabilizer. I use Lazy Nezumi, which is an amazing, amazing tool. It's a plugin for Photoshop. It's so good. I highly recommend to like anyone. And that basically allows me to create the kind of work that I always wanted to create, but I never could, like when I was working on paper. So that's amazing. It's great. I love digital art. I use Photoshop because I'm still in the depths of being an absolute Adobe stan, even though I shouldn't be because they kind of suck, but it's fine. I hate change. I can't change. I tried Clip Studio Paint, but I just couldn't change. I'm sorry.
I've spoken to a lot of artists recently, and a lot of them choose to work digitally these days because, just as convenience factor. This came up in an interview I did with someone else, but what he does is, I spoke to an artist called John, and what he does, he takes his iPad and he'll go out to the park and he'll just draw his work there. So kind of where do you work? Do you take an iPad with you and doodle, or do you have your tech set up at home? Kind of what environment do you need to be in to kind of create your work?
Okay, yeah. So both really. Like I have an iPad, which I treat more as a sketchbook. I cannot make professional work on the iPad. I know so many people who do, and I don't know how they do it. I think it's because, like I was saying about the stabilizer, the iPad does not yet have like a really usable stabilizer for creating like line art. Like it kind of does, but also not really. So I think that's the reason. And I love to take it in Sketch, but I can't do any like professional comics or anything on it. My setup is mostly like, oh god, I'm such an unprofessional. I really like to just sit in bed. I've got one of those little fold out desks. I'm using it right now. I'm in my
Yeah.
pajamas. I have my fold out desk with my laptop on it, and then I have a little Cintiq that plugs into the side. I try and use a desk, like, but oh god, it's, I don't know what I don't like about desks. It just, I think it feels too professional. And this, what I'm doing right now, is really bad for my posture. So, like, I would not recommend it. And everyone should use a desk. I think, like, the ideal setup is, like, either a standing desk or a kneeling desk. But no, I need to be chill. I love to, like, just sit in bed. I've got my little table, I've got my Cintiq, and then I have, like, Netflix on or something. And it's, like, the most chill thing. Like, it's good.
Yeah, so you've got Netflix on in the background. A lot of the people I've spoken to in this series, they use music
Yep.
in the background and stuff like that. So that's good. What is your scripting process like? Do you write out a full script? Do you storyboard? How does that tend to work for you?
Oh, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess, my scripting process. So it really depends on what I'm doing. For like my autobio stuff, it's like usually if I'm just like out and about doing stuff and I'm struck with a feeling, then I'll just like write it down. And that can be like, sometimes it's like exact, so it'll be like, oh, the finished comic will be exactly how it was scripted. Other times it'll be like I don't know, it'll just be something stupid like 3 words, like, why am I sad today? Think about it. And it's like, what did this mean when I'm reading it like 2 months later? For like fiction, my scripting process is way different. I think I'm not very good at writing fiction, which is why I don't tend to do it, honestly. My ideal situation would just be to work with a writer. But yeah, when I am scripting, I'm like, I'm reading books. I'm reading like Save the Cat, How to Write a Novel. I'm reading The Art of Story. I'm writing down the 12 hit points of the hero's journey. I'm in 3-act structure. It's very intense. And I think that's probably why I'm not so good at it, because it doesn't like come naturally to me. I feel like I have to try really hard to like make something make sense. Another thing that I really like is Miro, which is like a little app that you can basically create like a Charlie Kelly conspiracy board. Yeah, it's like a big mind map and it's amazing, and that's really helpful because it's visual. But yeah, my scripting process is it's very wild. It's untethered.
In terms of like creating, so I suppose it's going to vary from whether you're creating autobio or a fictional comic. How long does it usually take you to from beginning to finish to create a comic?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so autobio takes me like, it really depends on the comic, because like sometimes my autobio is really simple. It's like 2 panels. Sometimes it's like 4 panels or 5 or like a little bit more. But usually one of those will take me about 3 hours. I feel like you would look at them and be like, it should take less, but I draw slowly. So yeah. Anything that I'm working on that's like, sort of like your typical comic size that isn't just like a square, maybe like a page a day, maybe slightly less. Like I draw really slowly. I hear so many comics pros that are like, yeah, I can do like 3 pages a day, and I'm like, can't relate, honestly. Like, cannot. So yeah, it takes a while.
You mentioned there with fictional comics, you would prefer to work with with fictional comics. You mentioned that you prefer to work with a writer. How do you feel about collaborating more generally? Do you find it easy to come across collaborators? How do you manage that relationship, especially when you're kind of taking on commissions and things of that nature?
Yeah. So It's weird because, like, when I was kind of starting out, I felt very much like, yeah, I'm a lone wolf. I don't need no one. I think because I had a really weird time at university where they kind of force you to collaborate with people that don't, it's just not necessarily a good fit. So I kind of came into like my,
That's just
yeah,
preparing you for real life,
it's
though. You know,
true.
when you
It's
get into the
true.
office job.
It's very true. But I kind of came into my career sort of thinking like, okay, well, I'm gonna make comics and I'm gonna do it all on my own, and then I'll never have to collaborate. And also because, you know, like, people are very overwhelming and it tires me out. But I've really surprised myself because it turns out that actually I love to collaborate, and I love working on other people's stories, and I love working with writers and like have people sort of give me feedback. Like, I used to be terrified of, like, you know, like critique. But now I'm like, no, please give me the critique. It helps me get better. Like, it's great. Writers, like, are really nice to work with as well. Like, I think my one, like, preferred caveat for working with a writer is just that they know how to write for comics, because there's a really big difference between someone who is used to writing like prose and novels and then writing for a comic script. Because, like, I've worked with people who are not used to writing for comics, and they'll say something like, I don't know, like page 1, panel 1, character jumps off the swing and then does a twirl and then does something else. And it's like, it's impossible to do all of that in one panel. You're talking about like 3 panels of story here, which means the comic's going to be like 3 times as long, but then you're not going to want to pay me for 3 times the amount of pages. So how do I do this? So yeah, that's my one caveat, because it can just get very stressful, and it's no one's fault. Like, you know, inexperience isn't like a bad thing inherently. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the other thing is there's no one fixed comic book script
Yes.
format. You've got the Marvel method, you've got the DC method. The one that I tend to use these days is the one set up, I think his name's, what's his name? Fred Van Lint. He's got like a script format that he posted up on his blog that I think is really clear and useful. And I went to a course with Tony Lee about comic book script writing, and he goes through just 1 action per panel.
Yeah.
You need to limit the amount of dialogue that's on the page, because you don't want the words kind of like covering the art.
Yes.
The art is supposed to do most of the heavy lifting as well. And yeah, like you said, it takes time. It's kind of like, it's one of those things where you see a beautiful painting in a gallery and you think, oh, it'd be really great for a comic to be made out of that style. But then you think telling a sequential story using art is its own skill. Not everyone can do it. And it's the same thing for writing. It takes time to develop those skills. It's not necessarily automatic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult, I think, as well, especially if you're used to writing in one style and then you have to transition to another. Like, I mean, it's the same with art. Like, if you're used to painting like realism and then you have to switch to cartooning, it's a whole different skill set.
How do you kind of manage your time at the moment? That's the other question I've been kind of curious to ask people, because yeah, I see you giggling.
How does one manage their time? What a question for the ages. Badly? No, I don't. Yeah. I'm not giving myself enough credit, actually. I'm doing okay. So, oh God, it sounds so cliche. I hate saying this, but I use a planner and it's really helpful for me. But it's become a bit of a cliche, especially in sort of neurodivergent communities, where it's like, oh God, someone will say, like, you know, maybe someone with ADHD will be like, oh, I can't focus and I really struggle to know what to do. And then like a neurotypical person will be like, why don't you just use a planner? So like people hate hearing that. But it really does work for me. And I wouldn't push it on other people, but it does work for me. I use a bullet journal. And I think the thing that I really like about that is that it's so flexible. So what I tend to do is write down, like, you know, on a Monday, I'll get up and I'll write down my goals for the week, or like, yeah, goals for the week in like no particular order. And then on each day, I can decide what goals I'm going to do when. So like the most important things, I'll be like, well, I'll do them on the Tuesday. Let's be realistic. I'm not doing things on Monday. Monday's actually usually a really bad day for me, but Tuesday is good. So important things get done on Tuesdays. But yeah, obviously though, it doesn't always work. So like I really struggle with executive dysfunction, and like, oh God, so often it's like I need to be doing something and I know I need to do it today, but oh, whoops, I just spent 2 hours scrolling Twitter for no reason. Which is, yeah, it's embarrassing to talk about because it sounds so unprofessional. But I like to think that I'm good at getting things done, but there's also a lot of time where I'm not good at getting things done. So I think it's like, the time that you spend being like really productive and the time that you spend being like not very productive at all kind of balance each other out. So I think I'm doing okay, but it does tend to be a bit hectic when you kind of operate like that. It's not ideal, but it's fine.
The other kind of follow-up question to that is, how did you go about developing your style? I think I see a lot of manga influences. There's a little bit of Tilly Walden in there as well. So I was just wondering, kind of, how did you develop the style? And yeah, a lot of your comics, a lot of the characters don't have noses, and I was just kind of wanted to ask a little bit about that as well.
Oh man, the nose thing has a whole backstory. So it's like, well, not really. But like I used to not even realize that I wasn't drawing the noses. Like this is when I was like a teenager, and it was something that I never realized. And then one day, one of my friends said to me, they were like, "Why don't you ever draw noses? Like it's always really bothered me. Like it really annoys me about your art. Why don't you draw noses?" And I was kind of like, oh no, this is oh no, critique
Yeah.
I'm not prepared for. And they were a bit mean about it as well. So I was kind of like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that this was a thing that I wasn't doing, because I guess I just wasn't really thinking about it. I was just drawing what was in my heart, if you will.
Yeah.
So then I went the other way and I drew like massive, like really like try to give my characters noses. And then I kind of was like, this isn't working. It doesn't look right. I'm just not going to do it. So now I don't draw noses, but I completely own it. So I'm like totally comfortable with the fact that I don't draw noses. Like any insecurity that you're picking up on is like all you. But yeah, I do draw noses if I'm drawing in like a more I hesitate to say more realistic style because it's not realism, but like I have like a more sort of robust comic style that I don't bust out very often because it's a lot of work. But I do draw noses
Yeah,
there.
I mean, I was noticing some of the fan art you drew, kind of the Korra, not Korra. Who am I thinking of? Oh, what's the name of the other waterbender?
Oh, whoa,
It's gone.
Katara.
Katara. Yes, sorry. Yeah. So Katara and the Sailor Moon stuff as well. So you can draw noses. I was just wondering a little bit
I
about that. And
can. I just don't like it.
yeah, you just don't like doing it. And kind of a lot of your characters have got those big eyes. What kind of, apart from the fact that having big eyes makes it really easy. Not easy. It makes it more clear what the emotional expression of the character is going to be. Kind of what drew you, what inspired you to kind of develop that style.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think we both know it's anime.
Yeah.
But also plot twist. And this kind of ties back to the no noses thing as well. The thing that I started drawing when I started drawing was actually Powerpuff Girls, which have massive eyes and no noses.
Yeah.
So I think that like the first comic I ever did was, oh my god, I was like 10 and I used to make little Powerpuff Girls fan comics, and they were like super dramatic. Like the Powerpuff Girls they always died and then like got resurrected. I was always dramatic, and I kind of loved this for myself. But yeah, so that's like the origin story. But then I discovered anime and like Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff when I was in my teens, and like Kingdom Hearts, and I'm a massive weeb. I think you can tell from my shoe choices recently. But yeah, it's all anime. When I was in art school, my art style was like way more anime. It was like super moe, if you will. And I had a crit once with one of the lecturers, and he was basically like, I hate anime. And I was like, oh. So I went back to like my friends in art school and I was like, did you know that like sometimes tutors hate anime? And they were all like, yeah, like everyone knows that. Art school hates anime. And I was like, anime is the only thing I can draw. Oh no. It was a huge shock to me. Like literally everyone who knows anything about art school knows this, and I didn't. And I was like, oh my god. So then I tried to make my style like less anime, which I think is where the bean face kind of comes in. I kind of do like that Steven Universe bean face sometimes. Well, all the time now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, well, art school likes cartoons, but they don't like anime. So what if I like fuse the two together? And like people often tell me that my style looks like Scott Pilgrim, which to me is really funny because I've literally never read Scott Pilgrim. But I wonder if it's like the same sort of thing, like kind of wanting to have like a bit of a mixture between like traditional Eastern and Western cartooning.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's been ages since I've read a Scott Pilgrim comic, but that's not something that would have occurred to me. But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, kind of obvious that you've got that anime inflected style. So you've talked a little bit about some of your favorite comic books, well, cartoons, growing up. So I was just wondering, what are you reading at the moment, in terms of like graphic novels, or watching in terms of anime and all that sort of thing?
Oh geez. Okay. Well, what I'm watching right now is the easiest to answer because I'm rewatching all of the Evangelion films. Um, I love Ava. I love the show, but I haven't seen the last film yet. So this week I've been watching them all, and then I'm gonna watch the last one tonight. And I'm very excited for it. I hope it's good. I've heard good things. I don't have a lot of time to watch a lot of anime like lately. I'm one of those people that tends to just rewatch like the same thing I've already seen a million times. I don't know why. Like yeah, it's one of those things. What am I reading? I've got like a massive shelf of comics that I haven't read yet. What's on there? Road Queen is on there, Genderqueer is on there. Oh, I can't there's one by Rosemary Valero O'Connell, is that their name? I really like their art style. And they did a comic that I really like called Don't Go Without Me, but there's another one called Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which is on my to read list as
Yeah,
well.
I've just got a notification from my library that I need to go pick that up. So
Oh,
yeah,
yay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I need to read that
Oh, well, maybe we'll be reading
as
it at
well.
the same time. That will be
Yeah,
nice.
maybe. Yeah, that would be nice. Oh, there was one thing I didn't ask you about. So you've got an agent now.
I
You're
do.
working with Tara Gilbert. Kind of, what's that like?
Oh,
Is that
lovely.
nice?
Tara
Yeah.
is the best. Yeah, I I can't say too much because I have a bit of news that should be coming out.
Oh,
Hopefully,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But I can't say because no,
Tell.
no.
Okay.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
Yeah.
Oh geez. No, I
Yeah.
would love to. I've been sitting on this for a while, but I can't yet,
Okay.
unfortunately. But working with an agent is
Okay.
fantastic. It feels oh god. I'm gonna tell this story. Yeah. Okay. So I'm such a brat. Like I made a comic like last year at some point and I was really feeling, like people who are sort of my age or like even younger. And this isn't something that usually bothers me, but it did in that moment. And like people having agents and like putting books out. Someone's like, I'm 22 and I've just written my fifth graphic novel. And I'm like, how? So I made a comic and I was like, OMG, I'm so far behind all of my peers. Like everyone's so far ahead of me. Like, oh, I wish I had an agent. And then Tara reached out to me and she was like, oh, I thought you would have been agented. Do you want an agent? And I was like, mate, that would be amazing. So that's the
Yeah.
story of how that happened. So I guess the answer is if you want something, just be a big baby about it in a very public setting. Oh my god, that's
Yeah,
not
I
good
think,
advice, but
I think, well, as my cousins always used to say, the squeaky wheel does get the oil. So, you ask and you shall, you shall receive. So,
oh
uh,
jeez.
kind of a bit of a big question. What does success look like for you?
Oh, that is a big question. What does success look like for me? Um, God, I think it's difficult to answer because for me, the goalposts of success are constantly shifting. So, what success looked like to me, like when I was first starting out in my career, and it was just kind of like, I just want people to read my comics. And that's still true. But now it's like, I'm an adult, I need to pay the bills, I want to start a family someday, so I need to make money. So, if I'm going to be successful at my job, like I do need to make money. Um, and on the other hand, I'm like, that's very capitalist of you, Bex. Like, art shouldn't be like that. But also, like, we live in a society, so, you got to make money. But also, like, I think really, like, as someone who, I kind of said this earlier, but like, I've had a comic that I've been trying to make for like, the last few years, and it's just like a bit too big for me. I think comics are really hard to make. So I think literally just making a comic is a success. Like, if you can make stuff, like that's a win. And like even if you can't sell it, or like even if no one's really reading it, like that's still important and you still made it and it was still difficult and you achieved something. And I think it's really important to like, reflect on that, I guess, and be like, yeah, that's a success, that's valid. Like it's really hard, like if you struggle with like motivation or just like there's something in your way, and like yeah, especially for people who work, like full-time jobs, or they have kids as well, or like just aren't like in a position of privilege to be able to make comics all day like I do, and I still struggle even though it's what I do full-time. So it's like, yeah, like success is just making the thing, really.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I've really struggled to write, and that's why I'm podcasting. I should be writing my comics or novel or whatever it is, but I've decided to do these podcasts instead. And then when I'm supposed to be doing the podcast, I'll be thinking about the scripts I'm supposed to be doing and all this other sort of thing. So yeah, just getting the thing done is the win. So I guess you're not going to be able to talk too much about this, but what are you going to be doing next?
What am I going to be
So
doing
you mentioned
next?
Thought Bubble. You've mentioned you're going to be at Thought Bubble. Are there any other conventions that you're going to be?
There are.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I don't know if I can talk about this either. I'm
Okay.
I'm going to be a guest speaker at a convention this year, but I don't know if I can tell you which one.
Okay. Sure. All right. It's all secret. See, it just sounds like you've got lots of big secret projects that you're not
Oh
allowed
my
to
god!
talk
See, this
about.
is the
Yeah,
thing.
that's
People
absolutely
see me doing nothing on Twitter and just like making tweets when I procrastinate, but it's like, I've got a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Secret projects. Okay. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have?
Oh, geez. Well, I think even if that was the case, I've rambled so much with every answer that I've probably hit all the bases, to be honest. So,
Okay. And kind of finally, can you please tell my listeners where they can find you on the internet, social media, and all that good stuff?
of course, I would love to. So I post my comics under the handle Schnum, which is stupid because it's got a lot of silent letters. It's spelled SCHNUMN. And you can find me on pretty much every platform. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, also Tapas and YouTube, I guess. My store's closed right now, so I don't have that to plug. But yeah, follow me on Twitter. I tweet about shoes now, I guess.
This is a shoe review account now.
It is.
Just leaves me to say thank you, Bex, for taking the time to speak to me today. It was really nice to get to learn about the projects that you've worked on, and just about your artistic process as well. So thank you.
Oh no, thank you. It was really nice to talk to you too. It's always nice to talk about creative stuff because it gets the creative juices flowing for me. It's very motivating.
Yeah. So we're going to be getting back to doing reviews in the next episode. We're going to have Seafood Panel Allstar returning. John Schwochert is going to be reviewing a comic book with me, which is going to be really nice. Guys, if you could please subscribe, if you can leave a rating and review to the podcast wherever you find it. It really helps other people discover it. And if you can kick us some money either by the affiliate link or the tip jar that are in the episode description. Let's say bye to the listeners, Bex. Bye.
Bye, thanks for listening.